Hi, this is Kate Macdonald. I run Handheld Press, and I've been asked by Tracey to answer some questions, and this hopefully will give you information about what it's like running Handheld Press, which is an independent publisher in the southwest of England. So, first question, tell us a bit of background about you. I am a literary historian. I've got an academic background, but I'm also an editor. I trained as an editor once I took my PhD, and then after I moved country with my family, I went back to postgraduate academic research and I was a lecturer, but I never stopped being an editor. And this will probably begin to answer question two, which is what made me decide to set up Handheld Press. So I'd been a university lecturer for about 10 years in another country. I moved back to Britain because all my research was in Britain, all the archives were here. But after a while, it became painfully obvious that I wasn't finding a job, a permanent job in Britain as an academic. But at the same time, I was doing an awful lot of editing. I was a series editor for a major scholarly publisher, in that I brought books together and made them into academic books. And I was doing editing for colleagues. I was still doing a little bit of freelance work. And then a friend of mine said, why don't you set up a publishing house? And this didn't make any sense, even though all my research had been about publishing history and 20th century book culture in Britain. And I knew an awful lot about how publishing had evolved in Britain in the early part of the 20th century. And I knew an awful lot about the books that had been lost, which I really wanted to see in print again. So this friend, Christophe, he said this on a Friday night, and I said, don't be ridiculous. On a Monday morning, I and my husband had decided we were going to set up the company, and we had the domain name, we sorted out the funding, and that was it. That was in March 2017. So on the 9th of June 2020, Handheld Press will be 3 years old. Third question, what specific remit do I have for what we want to publish? Well, I started the company because I wanted to bring books back into print. So these will be British authors mainly, although we have published Irish and American too, who were much loved in their day, or a particular book, usually a novel, was super popular in its day, but has since gone out of print and has been lost for various reasons. And I think the book is still really, really good, a really excellent story, and most importantly, I think it will sell. When I set up Handheld, I had 3 lists in mind. I wanted to do the classics, which is the bring back from the dead, the forgotten fiction. I wanted to do research, which is books which are still telling terrific stories, but the stories come from scholarly research, from the work of researchers, biographers, or people who brought letters together to make a collection of letters. So these are a slightly different kind of book, and they have a different kind of cover. And we had a third list, which was Handheld Modern, because originally I really wanted to bring into print new fiction by new and well-established writers. We have published 2. They're both excellent, but my learning progress over the first 18 months taught me that I cannot market everything. I'm good at marketing the classics, I'm pretty good at marketing the research titles, but I don't know how to market modern fiction. Also, modern fiction is a super crowded area in publishing. Most publishers sell modern fiction, and I don't have that background. So I decided we're not going to publish any more. We're still very proud of the 2 we have published, and we are marketing them happily, and they're still selling. But that's it, no more modern fiction for us. The specific remit now is they have to be forgotten fiction or non-fiction, because we are about to publish in next year our first forgotten non-fiction title, or they have to be in the Handheld research list, which is biography and letters is what it's evolving into, and I'm very happy with that. Question 5. What makes Handheld Press different from the big publishers? Well, we're a very small publisher, but it's our books that make us different, because there aren't many publishers who specialise in the forgotten fiction market, the reprint houses. Persephone Books is an obvious competitor. Virago Books, Faber Finds. So we are in competition with them, but what makes us different? I think it might be me, because I'm an academic. I've been studying this for 30 years. I really know this field. And I know also the difference between a book that's popular because the academics say it's popular, or a book that's popular because the newspapers would like you to think it's popular, and a book that's popular because it sells hundreds of thousands because people love it. And it's that kind of book that I want to publish. Question 6, what do I or Handheld Press offer on a personal level that the big publishers can't? I do all our marketing and all our copywriting myself. So we have a unified vision. Obviously, I take advice and I learn, but this publishing house is me. And it's my vision, if you like. Now, if people don't like my vision and people don't like my taste, that's absolutely fine, because I'm only one person, but it seems to be popular. It seems to be working. And as a business model, it's erratic and peculiar, possibly eccentric, but it works. Question 7, how many authors do we publish? Well, I have to count this. 25 individual authors, and that includes people who edit the books, like put them as the editor, as well as the authors of the novels. Plus, we've published 1 anthology, and we're about to publish 3 more, which are anthologies of many, many different authors. So probably about 45 to 50 authors in total. But for individual, single novels, I'd say 20 to 25, depending on how you define it. Most of them are dead. This is important. This is why a reprint house is also different from a mainstream publishing house, because I very rarely have to deal with authors who are live and complaining or live and enthusiastic. I deal by post, by email with the author's estates. I deal by email with the scholars and the specialists who write the introductions to our classics. It's strange, really, because when I do deal with living contributors, if you like David Mackay, terrific translator. He translated Jan Jakob Saarhoff's Adrift in the Middle Kingdom for us, which we brought out last summer. When I was dealing with him about how to market the book, what the angles were, good places to get it reviewed, it felt really strange to be talking to an author about this, because most of the time I simply don't do that. Another thing I've had to learn, and this is me tangentially speaking, is understanding where I come from in the context of publishing. I have a very non-standard background. I trained as a technical editor. I worked for English Heritage as an academic archaeological editor for 2 years, and then I went freelance as an academic archaeological editor working with building conservation. I now understand that I have come into publishing by going up and then moving sideways. I did not work my way up from the bottom. So I do not know so much that people who study publishing at universities will know as a matter of course. Next question. A typical day in the life of Handheld Press. Usually at my laptop by 7, maybe 7:30 in the morning. We get up early. I'm an early bird anyway. I'm always a morning person. I'm usually asleep by 10 o'clock at night, quite often by 9:30, because that's the way I am. So I start work at 7:30. I look at the emails. If we've had any book orders overnight, I put them on a pile and I log them in my system. I check the emails for other things that are urgent. I do my round of 4 or 5 other email accounts. I look at the newspaper online. I check Facebook. I check Twitter. I might get stuck into something on Facebook or Twitter to do with marketing or anything else. By then it's usually about 8 o'clock. Then what might I do? I will usually have to do a post office run, which means I get my bike out and I cycle to the post office. So I have a window of time when I really want to be on the bike on the way to the post office, and that kind of shapes the morning. If I've got an hour, I might do an online ballet class with the Royal Academy of Dance, which I absolutely love. If I don't feel like ballet, maybe there's the laundry to hang up. So I hang up the laundry at the top of the hill, which is our garden. And I might do some watering. Might think about having breakfast. Or if I don't do any of that, I might do some writing, because I do secret science fiction writing on the side. But I'm not likely to do much work. I don't tend to start getting down to work until I've come back from the post office and got that out of the way. Then I go through the emails. I'd say half of my working day is marketing, even if it's chopped up into tiny bits. It's things like keeping up the Twitter presence, doing stuff on Facebook, designing adverts, writing marketing copy, chasing what's happening to this or that review, developing something new, like coordinating the making of a video with 3 or 4 different people who have got to contribute their part. And then after I have lunch, which is usually by 12:30, I will get stuck into some solid editing or a large task that needs concentration. And then in the evening, America has woken up. Because we have US distribution, I quite often do most of my American work in the evening, just emails. It may not take very long, but I have to check what the Americans want me to do. I have to perhaps pursue something. I have to fill in a form or decide whether I want to do this or that marketing thing that they'd like me to consider. By 9:30 at night, the UK sales report comes in. So I see how many books we've sold through our UK distributor. And all this time throughout the day, because my husband is working from home as well because of lockdown, he or I will be wandering into each other's office and saying, to do with the business. So I'm be asking him, what can we reprint? I need to reprint this title. Can we reprint now, or do I need to wait till the next month because of cash flow? So that kind of conversation is always happening. Question 9, the workload. What is the workload like? A typical day, I would be working for 10 hours on and off. I live and breathe Handheld Press. It doesn't feel entirely healthy all the time, but I love it. I really love this job. I am doing print production, marketing, copywriting, cash flow management, basic archiving, metadata. There's not so much of that these days. Editing, commissioning, they're the fun bits. Oh, cover research, talking to publicity, my 2 publicity assistants, also talking to our elder daughter who does our YouTube and our Instagram, talking to people who are doing the tedious typing for me. Question 10, the second last question, how do I divide the work with the others? So there's me, I'm the commissioning editor, I'm a director, I am in charge of everything to do with print production and communication and words, and I decide on the books. The other principal player in the business is the other director, who is my husband, David Marsh. He is in charge of everything to do with numbers and money. He works with our accountant, Monica. We have Nadia Gucci, who is the owner of Messrs Dash and Dare, and she is a terrific designer, and she's in charge of all our series design, does all our layout designs, all our adverts. So we have a unified design family for the business, which makes us look really good, I think. I also have Judith, who works in London. She is a freelance publicity assistant. She works for a couple of other publishers too, but she handles all my London-based backroom publishing industry book trade stuff. As well as Judith, we have our elder daughter Holly, who is our social media content manager. She edits all our videos. We have Monica, who we talk to once a year for several weeks about the account. Combined Book Services, who are UK distributors. So they basically keep the books for us in their warehouse. Mike and Sharon. Yes, Mike and Sharon run Cicerone, which is a website and data company. So they run our website, which is how we sell a lot of books. We have a shop front in the website. So Mike takes care of all that, and Sharon takes care of all our data and runs our emails and our communication system. There's a chap in Oxford called Tom, who I occasionally ask about rights advice when I'm not sure what I'm doing. We have recently taken on 2 more freelancers. One is Michelle, who does our metadata for the US distribution. Last autumn, we signed a contract with Two Rivers, which is part of Ingram, which is a mammoth company, but they do our North American distribution and also sales wrapping. But they have immense metadata requirements, and this was doing my head in because their systems are so difficult to understand. So this was giving me intense grief, and that's where Judith came in. Judith said, well, Michelle in my other company does the metadata for this system that you hate so much. She'll do it for you. So thank God Michelle's doing it for me too. And we also have Jay. Jay is a new acquisition, freelance publicity and consultant in North American book industry, publicity and reviews and so on. And there's Sarah. Sarah in Glasgow. Sarah's a student, just finishing her first degree, about to start an MA in publishing at Stirling. And I met her because we went to a book fair last year in Glasgow, FantasyCon, where we sold a lot of books about science fiction and fantasy. And she saw on Twitter that we were going and emailed me to say, do you want any help? I'm going too. And she turned up and she was so helpful and she was unflappable and she's so keen to get into publishing. But the most important thing was she made herself available and was good and useful. So since then, I've given her some incredibly boring but lucrative typing jobs. We can't afford to employ anybody at the moment, but this network of freelancers is Handheld. The last question, how eco-friendly are we and how do we work towards this? Well, as I said, I cycle to the post office. That's pretty eco-friendly. All our books, when they're posted from this office, are wrapped in 100% recyclable paper on card packaging. Even the tape is made of paper. We only use the car on business when we are driving to book fairs, which isn't happening at the moment, but it did last year. Because we are working from home, there's not a lot of commuting to do up downstairs, so the scope for not being eco-friendly is not large. We're a fairly eco-friendly family, so that spills over into the way we do business, and that is where the questions end. So I hope this has been useful. I'm very happy to answer questions if you want to email me. You can find all the information you need looking at our website, handheldpress.co.uk. www.handheldpress.co.uk.